Yes. Good morning. My name is Michael Chandler, and I, along with my colleague Kiara Moon,
Good morning, Your Honor.
represent the United States today. I have a couple preliminary matters, but would you like to hear introduction from the defendant? Please, let's have the defense introduce himself.
Of course, Your Honor. Good morning. My name is Bryan Walker. I'm joined here today by my good friend and co-counsel, Mr. Justin Shu.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Together, Mr. Shu and I represent the defendant in this case, Ms. Blake Crawford.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Okay, what do you have? Yes, Your Honor. First, the government would like to introduce, would like to move to invoke Rule 603, the constructed swearing in of all witnesses.
Does the 603 say that people are just presumed sworn in?
I believe in this jurisdiction, I believe that's how it works in this jurisdiction. It simply say constructively sworn in.
No, you're right. You're right. All right. So any objection to invoking Rule 603?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Witness of this one.
All right. We've never had the pleasure of appearing in your courtroom before, so we'd ask for your preferences for approaching the witness, moving about the well, and approaching the opposing counsel.
I wouldn't say it's a pleasure yet. You have free reign, so you're just within a degree of reasonableness. You can use the well, approach the bench, witnesses each other, unless there's like a sudden movement or something, but just use your judgment. But you don't have to ask permission.
Yes, Your Honor. With that, the United States is ready to proceed.
Defense?
Yes, Your Honor, just a couple of things. First, maybe consider the objections heard outside the earshot of the jury constructively.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
And when those objections are sustained, should we move to strike or consider the testimony already struck?
If there is testimony on the record, move to strike if you want it off. If it's just a question, there's been no answer, then we don't need to go through that process. But again, I'll defer to you on whether you move or not.
With that, defense is ready for trial.
Okay. If we are ready, then let's go to opening statements.
Yes, Your Honor. Judge Brown, Mr. Walker, members of the jury. Her anger put her on the roof. Her training did the rest. July 4th, 2022. And a man named Thomas Capella is standing at the Rittenhouse Square just a mile back. You see, he's a presidential candidate. And he came to Philadelphia to give a speech to his thousands of supporters. He's tightening his tie, running through his speech in his head as he walks up to the podium. He sees the flags. He sees the signs, the t-shirts. What he doesn't see is the woman 600 yards away on the rooftop of a hotel. He doesn't see her holding the sniper rifle. He doesn't see her hold her breath. And he doesn't see her pull the trigger. Before he knows it, he's dead. So why? Why would someone kill a U.S. senator? Well, while Thomas Capella was an inspiration to many, someone, he was a threat. To someone, he was a threat to everyone in this country. To someone, as long as he was alive, none of us were safe. That's someone sitting in this chair. Is this the fact? Blake Frost. You'll learn today that her anger put her on that rooftop and her training did the rest. It's why we've charged her with the murder of a high-ranking presidential candidate. With that charge, we have to prove two things. First, that she shot and killed Thomas Capella. And second, that she did so deliberately. When we do that, we have to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. That's the highest burden in our legal system. And it's a burden we embrace. Because we're going to prove exactly that today. We're going to show you how her anger put her on that rooftop and how her terrain did the rest. So what anger? Well, today you're going to hear from Special Agent Morgan Divya. He was working the Secret Service detail when Senator Capello was shot. And he was also a part of the investigation into his killing. He'll tell you that during his investigation of the defendant, he found a tweet just 2 months before the killing. In this tweet, this defendant called Senator Capello a threat. Said he was a threat to everyone in this country, said that as long as he was alive, none of us were safe. So what was her training? Well, members of the jury, you're going to learn today that shot, it wasn't an easy one to make. You're going to learn that it came from 600 yards on the top of a rooftop of a hotel. You're going to learn it hit Senator Capello right in the middle of his forehead. And you're also going to learn that this defendant has had years of military training as a sniper. That she's won competition after competition after competition in the all-army sniper competition. You're going to learn she holds the world in the U.S. Army for the longest bullseye at almost 3 times the shot that was made on Senator Capello. And you're going to learn that on that rooftop, they found her DNA. Members of the jury, this defendant killed a U.S. senator. She fought for this country and then used those skills to turn against us. At the end of today's case, I'm going to ask you to look at her anger. Look at her training. You'll see she was the only one who could do this. And you'll be compelled to come to the only verdict consistent with the facts. A verdict of guilt. Thank you.
Opening statements from the defense, Your Honor.
Go ahead.
Your Honor, Mr. Brown, members of the jury, anyone could be the answer. On July 4th, 2022, hundreds of people gathered as Senator Tom Capello stood up to speak. Cameras were rolling. An audience of people spread across the country listening to every word. The world was watching. Tragedy struck. But when the government got up here just 1 moment ago, they gave you one explanation. They picked one person out from that crowd. They gave you one story because they think it would make it easier for us. But because the government knows that the world is still watching, they think they need an answer fast. But what the evidence in this case today will show, that anyone could be the answer. Members of the jury, this is Blake Crosby. And for nearly a decade, she served in the United States military. And what you're going to hear today is that even after leaving and coming home, She still chooses to fight for this. But you'll hear that she does it through peaceful protests. And by using her voice to stand up for what she believes in. But the government charged her with murder. Now, members of the jury, nobody here is going to try and convince you that Miss Crosby is a perfect person. Nobody here has to. Because when she stepped through that courtroom door, she came in with the presumption of innocence. That means she sat down an innocent woman, and she will remain that way until the government can prove otherwise. Members of the jury, they had to prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt. I want to make sure one thing is extremely clear. That's the highest burden in our legal system. As the defense, we don't have a burden. We don't have to call on any witnesses or provide any evidence, but today we're going to. Because we know that anyone could be the answer. And to do that today, we're going to break down the case of a murder into 3 different parts and how anybody could fill those parts. Through the means, the motive, and the opportunity. First, we'll show you that anybody could have had the means. Because members of the jury, you might expect that in a felony murder case, you might see a murder weapon. The government won't be able to bring you one to that. They'll be able to bring you pieces. But what you'll hear about those pieces, members of the jury, is that there's no fingerprints, no DNA, no forensics leading those parts of that gun back to Miss Crosby. So second, we'll show you how anyone could have had the motive. Because in his opening statement, Mr. Brown says that the Secret Service found a tweet. But what you'll hear today is that they actually found more death threats than the Secret Service is able to count. They won't be able to tell you how many of them were at that rally or in Philadelphia or were capable of shooting that gun. So last, we'll show you that anyone could have had the opportunity, because that rooftop that Mr. Brown says they were pointing the gun from, you'll see that they didn't need a key, that there were no cameras, that it was available to the public. That anyone could have taken those stairs and taken that shot. You'll see that anyone could have been the answer. Now, a lot of information is going to be thrown at you. And it might seem easier while you do your difficult job of sifting through the facts to do what the government did. And to find the easiest route. The first one. But remember that we come to a courtroom like this not to do what's easy. We come to a courtroom like this to do what's right. That's why at the end of this trial, I'll come before you again. I'll ask that you find Blake Crosby not guilty. Thank you.
Government, any witnesses?
Yes, Your Honor, but before we proceed, I'd actually like to admit exhibits 16 and 17 into evidence. They're 2 exhibits that, pursuant to stipulation, 16 and 17 in the pretrial order, have had all objections waived to them.
Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor, pursuant to stipulation, there's no objections.
Okay, 16 and 17, you said?
Yes.
All right, they're in.
Also, Your Honor, I believe you have a binder up there that allows you to access the different case materials. So,
Done right here.
all right.
Perfect. All right, so 16 and 17 are in. Any witnesses?
Yes, Your Honor. The government calls Morgan Divya to the stand. May I proceed?
Whenever you're ready.
Please introduce yourself to the members of the jury.
Hi there, I'm Morgan DeVico. I work for the Secret Service.
How did you get into the Secret Service?
Right out of college, I applied to be in the Secret Service and I became a special agent. I've been working there for the past 21 years.
Sir, how'd you get involved in this case?
Well, I was tasked with being on the protective detail for Thomas Capello. He was a presidential candidate last year and I was the lead agent when he was shot and killed.
What day did that happen?
That was July 4th, 2022.
Sir, I want to talk about how the investigation moved after Senator Capello was shot.
Sure.
What was the first thing you did?
Well, at first we secured the scene and then we tried to identify where Mr. Capello was shot from. Forensics would say that the bullet came from a nearby area with 4 or 5 buildings, and we eventually tracked it down to be just one.
What building was that?
That was the Sonesta Hotel.
What did you find at the Sonesta Hotel?
Well, there was a hotel employee who gave us a tip, and he told us that there was an individual that he identified as Blake Crosby trying to get up to the roof on July 4th.
When you got up to that, did you find any evidence?
Yes, we found a bullet.
Your Honor, approaching the closing counsel, the witness in turn, please. Did file.
Thank you.
Special agent, do you recognize that?
Yes, this is the bullet that we found on top of the Sonesta Hotel.
Your Honor, permission to move to 5 in evidence. Any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
5 is in. Special agent, what was significant about that bullet?
Well, forensics would later identify that this bullet was the same size, manufacturer, and color as the bullet that killed Thomas Capello. It was an exact match.
So if you found a bullet that was the exact match to the bullet that killed Senator Capello on the Sonesta roof, did you find any evidence connecting this defendant to the Sonesta roof?
Yes. On top of the identification of Blake Crosby trying to get to the roof, we found a cigarette with identifying characteristics on it.
Your Honor, approaching closing counsel, witness in turn, did 7.
Thank
Does that look familiar?
Yes, this is the cigarette that we recovered from the top of that roof.
Your Honor, moving exhibit 7 to death. Objection.
Without objection, Your Honor.
7 is. How did that cigarette impact your investigation?
Well, we found this cigarette just 4 feet away from this bullet. And when forensics came back, they found Blake Crosby's DNA and fingerprints on this cigarette.
Did they find any evidence in relation to a sniper rifle?
Well, on this
cigarette.
on this cigarette, they did find some forensic material that a gun had been shot. That's gunpowder residue that was also on this cigarette.
So you found gunshot residue on a cigarette that had this defendant's DNA. Did you find any? I want to talk about whether or not anyone could have hit that shot.
Sure.
Sir, how far is the Sonesta Hotel from the square where Senator Capello was speaking?
The Sonesta Hotel is 604 yards away from Rittenhouse Square. That's around 1,500 feet.
Where was the senator shot?
Senator Capello was shot dead center in his forehead. It was an exact hit.
How many shots did it take?
There was only one shot.
I want to talk about whether or not this defendant had the expertise to hit a dead center shot from 604 yards. Did you ever review any evidence that lets you know on that information?
We did find evidence that Miss Crosby was a skilled marksman, specifically in her military records as an Army sniper.
Your Honor, approaching opposing counsel and the witness in turn with a copy of Exhibit 14 portions redacted. Approaching witness. So do you recognize that?
Yes, this is Miss Crosby's military record.
Does it look like fair and accurate copy?
It does.
So at this time, we'd like to move Exhibit 14 and edit.
Any objection?
Without objection.
14 as redacted is in.
Sir, what in that military record impacted your investigation?
Well, this military record talks about how Miss Crosby was a trained sniper and an expert marksman at that. That she had the U.S. Armed Forces record for the longest bullseye at 1,504 yards, nearly 3 times the distance of the shot fired on July 3rd.
Do you know if this defendant had any awards in sniping?
Yes, the defendant had won multiple awards in consecutive years for being the best sniper in the U.S. Army.
So we learned that she had the training to hit that shot. I want to talk about whether or not she had the aim. After you determined that this defendant may have been a suspect, did you learn anything about how she felt on Senator Capello?
Yes, based on all of the forensic evidence, we looked into Miss Crosby's background to see signs of any potential motive, and we found a concerning tweet which indicated anger.
Approaching home counsel was in terms of Exhibit 12. So is that tweet?
Yes, it is.
Does it look like a fair and accurate copy?
It does.
Does it look like it's changed or altered in any way?
No, not that I can see. This is the same one.
At this time, moving to Exhibit 12 with that.
No objections.
What was it?
So what did this defendant say in that tweet?
Well, Miss Crosby said that Thomas Capello was a threat to every person in this country.
After she said he was a threat to every person in this country, did this defendant say anything else?
She said that as long as he was alive, no one was safe.
Thank you, Special Agent. No further questions at this time.
Ross?
Yes, Your Honor. May I proceed?
Go ahead.
Good morning, Agent.
Good morning.
I want to start by talking a little bit more about what you do.
Sure.
Because you told us a minute ago that you work for the Secret Service, right?
Yes, for the past 21 years.
You've been doing it since you were right out of college.
That's correct.
You got moved up to be the head of the security detail that was supposed to protect Senator Capello, right?
Yes, I was.
After he was killed, you led his investigation.
Well, I created a joint task force with the FBI and Secret Service, and I led the Secret Service side of that, correct?
So you led part of that investigation.
I did.
And you say that your case against Blake Crosby is airtight, right?
Yes, based on the thousands of people that we identified, interviewed, and conducted research on, it was only Miss Crosby who was connected to the crime.
Well, I want to see if that's true and talk about your investigation through its means, motive, and opportunity. Let's start with the means.
Sure.
Because just a moment ago on direct examination, Mr. Chandler handed you a bullet that you found on a rooftop, right?
Yes, he did.
You have it in front of you?
I do.
So you sent this into forensics, right?
We did.
I want to go ahead and read what that forensic report says about this bullet.
Sure.
Because, sir, it's true that your forensics team says that bullet found en route has no fingerprints, right?
You're correct. It had no fingerprints or DNA.
Had no DNA either, right, sir?
Yes.
So there's no forensic evidence connecting that bullet to Blake Crosby, right?
Not on this bullet alone.
Sir, I think you'd agree that in order to fire a bullet, you need a gun, right?
Sure.
You don't have that gun, do you?
No, we only have parts of it that we found in a trash can.
Right, that part, it was a trigger bar, right?
It was.
Let's go back to that forensic evidence and see what they said about that trigger gun. Because right beneath where we spoke about that bullet, sir, it also says that that trigger gun has no fingerprints, right?
Correct. Just like the bullet didn't have any DNA on it.
Just like the bullet, they have no forensic evidence tying that trigger guard to Miss Fry, right?
You're correct. We don't have any forensic.
So you can't tell us who was the owner of that bullet.
No,
Can't tell us who the owner of that trigger guard was.
no, not necessarily.
Sir, you know that Miss Crosby's from Los Angeles, right?
Yes,
You know that she flew to Boston.
yes,
TSA never told you she carried a sniper rifle through security, right?
no, based on what we reviewed, we didn't find it.
And from her time in Boston up to that day in Philadelphia, you have no records of her buying a sniper rifle, do you?
No, if she were to have done it, she would have had to go through illicit and black market.
So that's a no to my question. You have no records that she bought a sniper rifle.
No, we don't.
Well, let's go ahead and move on to see if anyone else could have had a motive. Mr. Chandler, he brought you one of the defendant's tweets, right?
Yes, he did.
And you've been looking at social media for threats against Senator Capello for a while.
Yes, we have.
Look, email,
Yes,
email,
we did.
look through the dark web to see if there were any threats towards the Senate.
Yes, we monitor almost everything.
Sir, based on your time in the Secret Service, you think that millions of people despised Senator Capello?
Objection, Your Honor. Call for speculation.
Yes, Your Honor, this is rationally based on this agent's perception of that email, mail, social media, of the dark web. He's been able to get these opinions from those posts, and that's why he's able to testify as to whether or not these people can despise Senator Capello.
May I be heard, Your Honor? Your Honor, he can ask him about what he saw, but asking him to go in the mindset of millions of people is speculation. He can ask what he saw, what he learned. He can't ask what he thinks millions of people feel. That's speculation.
The quantity does give me pause, but didn't you ask the witness about information about what the defendant felt?
In relation to specifically what he saw, he can ask him what he saw, but asking what millions of people think is different.
Response.
Last one.
Yes, Your Honor, based on the conjunction of questions where he asked about knowing, going through those mail, email, chatter on the dark web, things like that, we're able to see if this agent was looking at these records and based an opinion, was able to see from those records that these people had that feelings towards them.
I'll give you some leeway.
Yes, Your Honor.
Agent, I'll ask again. Based on your time going through email, mail, and social media, do you believe millions of people despise Senator Capello?
Yes, like any politician, Mr. Capello had people who didn't like.
So you found death threats,
We did.
found multiple.
You're correct.
Agent, you even said that you found more death threats towards Senator Capello than you can even count.
Yes, that's true.
Can't tell us if any of those people were at the rally on July 4th, can you?
No, but we investigated all of those death threats.
But that's a no, you can't tell us if they were at the rally.
You're correct.
Can't tell us if they were staying at the Sonesta Hotel.
No, but again, we investigated everyone who stayed at the Sonesta and no one had a connection to this crime.
Agent, you can't tell us the people who had that anger, had the training to shoot that sniper. Okay,
No, we can't.
well then let's move on to the opportunity. Because you mentioned earlier that you went to the rooftop of the Sonesta Hotel, right?
Yes,
You said that an eyewitness saw Miss Crosby walking towards that rooftop.
yes, he did.
You talked to that eyewitness about the staircase that led you.
We did.
Sir, it's true. That door to the rooftop, it's unlocked, isn't it?
You're correct.
You don't need a key to get in.
From what I understand, yes.
The staircase that leads to it goes right to the first floor,
Yes,
has an exit out to the street,
does.
and connects to every single floor in between those 1 through 25, right?
Yes, it does.
So, sir, it's possible that if I walked about a couple blocks from here, I could walk up to that rooftop.
From my understanding, yes.
So, sir, you don't have any video camera footage of anyone walking up that staircase, do you?
No, the video camera from both the staircase and the 25th floor had stopped working before our investigation.
So, sir, you can't tell us if anyone else had gone up to the rooftop on July 4th, 2022. And
No, only that hotel employees didn't see anyone else trying to get over.
But that's a no, sir. You can't tell us anyone else.
Not definitive.
Thank you for your time, please. Your Honor, at this time, I have nothing for you.
Redirect?
No redirect, Your Honor. I ask that this witness be allowed to step down.
Yes.
And then I ask that those exhibits be published to the jury.
Go ahead.
These are 14, but no survey. And then for the full cigarette, if I can figure that.
Anything else from the government?
No, Your Honor, the government rests its case in chief.
Defense?
Yes, Your Honor. At this time, the defense called Blake Crosby. Permission to retrieve a couple of exhibits from the members of the jury? Yes. Your Honor, may I proceed?
Go ahead.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
Would you mind introducing yourself to the members of the jury?
Of course. My name is Blake Crosby.
Where do you work, ma'am?
Well, right now I've been doing Lyft and Uber, just trying to make ends meet. I've had a hard time figuring out what my next step is since leaving the army.
So, ma'am, why are you?
I've been charged with murdering Senator Thomas Capello. I'm here to explain that I didn't do this.
Let's take a step back and talk about how we got here. Ma'am, were you in Philadelphia on July 4th?
Yes, I was.
Why?
I went to attend one of Mr. Capello's campaign rallies to protest. I'd gone to a couple before that as well.
Or how did you know what cities Senator Capello was rallying?
Well, a couple months before, he released a schedule from his campaign team listing the different stops he was making throughout the summer. I booked trips to several of those cities to attend and to protest,
Would you recognize a copy of that? I showed it to you here.
of course.
Your Honor, at this time, I'm approaching the prison counsel with a copy. Let's label this exhibit number 10. I'm approaching the witness. Ms. Crosby, what did I just hand you?
This is that schedule of all of Capello's campaign stops last summer.
Is it fair and accurate?
Yes,
Has it been changed since last year?
no, not that I can tell.
And Your Honor, at this time, the defense offers exhibit 10 in the evidence.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
And is it?
Permission to publish exhibit 10 to the members of the jury?
Yes.
Ma'am, I want to go back to that one protest on July 4th. Where were you when Senator Capello was shot?
I was standing in the crowd in front of the stage. I didn't see the shot hit him, but I saw him go down. I saw him collapse.
Ms. Crosby, do you know if anyone else was protesting at that rally?
Yeah, there were several of us, lots of other veterans, people who were concerned.
Objection, Your Honor. The lack of foundation. Have you heard?
Go ahead.
We haven't heard any foundation as to how she has, sorry, Your Honor.
No, you're good.
We haven't heard any foundation about how this defendant knows that the other people were also veterans. We need that on the record before she can just say that.
Did I miss it, or is that in the record, or are we missing it?
Yes, Your Honor, I believe the witness did say that they knew they were veterans. We
Okay.
can go ahead and lay further foundation as to how she knows that.
For my benefit, that might be helpful. So I will provisionally sustain the objection, and then you might have the backup of staff, and then we'll go from there.
Of course, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor.
Ma'am, what were you protesting at Senator Capello's campaign?
Well, my biggest concern was the fact that he wanted to defund the military. I was extremely concerned about what that would do for our national security, our relationships with international allies. I was concerned. And people I spoke to at those rallies, they were worried as well.
Objection, Your Honor, to hearsay.
Response?
8033, that's a that existing emotional statement.
Your Honor, these are actually beliefs which are not protected under 803. These are beliefs on his political opinion. These have to be feelings that they feel. He's talking about what they believe in terms of ideas. That's not protected.
Is the defense trying to prove the fact or thing believed to be true, or just giving us the?
No, Your Honor, we're just saying that they were worried about that policy, not that the policy was true.
With that limitation, I'll remove the objection. But
Yes, sir.
Ms. Crosby, where did you go after Chandler?
I was pretty shaken up, rattled. I served in the military for years, but it doesn't get any easier, and honestly, just felt like I was back there again. So I just walked around for a little bit, tried to collect myself, and eventually I went back to the hotel and headed home back to Los Angeles.
Now, I want to talk about the investigation that the government did following that. Have you been here all the time?
Yes, I have.
Were you here when Agent Morgan Divya testified?
Yes, I heard what he said.
Ma'am, were you interviewed by the FBI?
I was, yes, but not by Agent Divya. Another agent interviewed me.
Ma'am, were you here when they told us that this cigarette had your name?
Yes, I was.
Did you smoke this cigarette?
I did. I started smoking back when I was in the Army. That thing makes me wish I'd started vaping or something, because just can't stop hearing about that cigarette. But yes, I did.
When did you smoke it?
The day before, on July 3rd.
Where did you smoke?
I went up to the roof. There was a sign saying I wasn't supposed to be up there, but it wasn't locked or anything, and I just wanted some fresh air. I wanted to get away from the noise of the city, so I went up to the roof on the 3rd.
Ms. Crosby, do you know if anyone else had access to the rooftop?
I mean, like I said, it wasn't locked. There was just a sign saying, only no guests supposed to go up there. But it was easy to get to from the stairwell, so I would think so.
Did you tell the FBI that you were smoking on it?
I was scared to admit it, but eventually, yes, I did.
Then why did you?
I work for the government. I know what they can do. I know that cops can lie to people. And I was scared. I could see what they were trying to do to me. And I mean, here I am. I was just trying to protect myself.
I want to talk about whether or not you have training to shoot a sniper rifle. Because we've heard a lot today that 7 years ago, you won competitions, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Ms. Crosby, do you think you could shoot as well as you did in 2015?
No. Since leaving the military, I have not continued practicing any sort of sniper training or anything. Honestly, the thought of touching a gun just makes me feel sick to my stomach.
So, ma'am, do you own a sniper rifle?
No, I own a handgun, but just for protection, and I never use it.
Thank you for your time. Your Honor, at this time, I have nothing further.
Yes, Your Honor. Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
Ma'am, you're a liar. Isn't that right?
Excuse me?
Ma'am, you were dishonorably discharged from the military in 2017. Isn't that right?
Sir, I don't know if you know anything about what the military is like, but sometimes we lie to protect each other. I wouldn't call myself a liar.
Ma'am, in this case, you lied to protect yourself. Isn't that true?
Yes, because of what you're doing to me.
Ooh, what I'm doing to you. This was back in 2017. Isn't that right?
Sir, you asked me if I lied in this case because of that stupid cigarette. Yes, I lied.
Ma'am, I'm talking about back in 2017 when you were dishonorably discharged. Back then, you lied to save yourself. Isn't that right?
To save myself, to save my subordinate, yes.
To save your subordinate? That's your answer?
Wanted to protect both of us. I didn't want any of it to be dragged up any further than it needed to be.
Your Honor, at this time, I would ask to use a non-redacted portion of that exhibit that I showed you earlier, exhibit 14. Because at this time, I believe she had mischaracterized the event that took place by saying she was trying to protect that individual.
You can show the witness whatever you like. And
Yeah.
we'll address it if there are any objections.
That's your military record, right?
Yes,
Looks like a fair and accurate copy.
it is.
Doesn't look like it's been changed or altered in any way.
No,
Your Honor, at this time, we'd like to move exhibit 14 in there.
Any objection to 14 unredacted?
Yes, Your Honor, there are portions on exhibit number 14 that pertain to improper propensity evidence as it shows anger and violence to the defendant. You're trying to use that to prove that because she was violent back then, she was violent.
Your Honor, may I be heard?
Yes.
Your Honor, that's not what we're trying to use it for. We're trying to use it to show that she just lied in court right now. That goes to her credibility. That goes to something other than a propensity for violence. She said she lied to protect him when we have it on a good faith basis that she hit him in the face with the butt of her rifle. For her to say today that she was protecting him when she lied is untruthful, and the jury needs to hear that.
Just one clear, are you offering this as a substantive exhibit, like a 608 type of deal, or is this just impeachment based on the testimony with the stand?
Impeachment. Your Honor.
Why do we need a document admitted in evidence if you're just using it for impeachment and not substantive evidence?
Your Honor, if you would prefer that I simply impeach her based on what's in the document, I'm fine with that.
Any objection to using it just for impeachment?
No, Your Honor, so long as they lay the foundation that she recognizes this, everything's fair and accurate, that, it doesn't get.
Okay, I believe that foundation is just level.
That's my understanding too. So with that limitation, I'm going to overrule the objection. If you think we're delving into substantive testimony, then you can raise it.
Yes, Your Honor.
Go ahead.
Ma'am, you understand that you were sworn in today, right?
yes, of course.
You understand that perjury is a crime.
Yes, of course.
You just told the members of this jury that you lied to protect your subordinate. Is that true?
We both could have been disciplined as a result of this, yes.
It's your testimony that you both could have been disciplined for you hitting him in the face with the butt of your rifle.
Of course, I wanted to protect myself. It was a horrible situation. I didn't want it to get any further than it did.
Man, that wasn't my question. My question was, is it your testimony today that he would have gotten disciplined for you hitting him in the face with the butt of your rifle?
I can't say for sure. I didn't know what was gonna happen. I was concerned. I was trying to protect myself.
And so you lied.
Yes.
Man, you keep saying, I heard so much about this cigarette. The reason you keep hearing about this cigarette is because you lied about it, isn't that right?
Yes. I've explained. I knew they were trying to say that I did.
The FBI asked you. Were you on that route? Isn't that right?
They did.
You said no.
That's correct.
They showed you this cigarette, right?
They did.
They asked you, is this yours?
Yes.
You said no.
Yes.
Those were both lies.
Yes, I was trying to protect myself.
You were trying to protect yourself. So you didn't reveal that this cigarette was yours until after they told you your fingerprints were on it. Isn't that right?
Yes, but I know that they could have lied to me if they wanted to. I felt like they were just trying to frame me.
Let's talk about if you told any more lies today. Because it's your story that you woke up at 5 a.m. on July 4th, 2022, right?
Not a story. I wake up at 5 a.m. every single day. Military training.
And you left the hotel at 6 a.m.
That's correct.
And you didn't get back till after the shooting, isn't that right?
Yes,
But man, you were in court today, weren't you?
I was.
You were in court when Special Agent Divya took the stand.
Yes, I heard his testimony.
You were in court when he said an eyewitness saw you in the stairwell of the hotel an hour before the shooting, weren't you?
I wasn't in the stairwell. I never saw anybody because I wasn't there.
And is your testimony they were lying about that?
I wasn't there. I don't know who this person was. I didn't hear from this witness. I only heard what the agent said, and I don't know what he's talking about.
You heard him say that that eyewitness was 100% sure it was you.
That's what the agent said. Something about photograph. I didn't see or hear any of that. I have no idea what he was talking about.
Man, we talked a lot about your lives. I want to talk about how you feel about Senator Capella. Because, man, you don't like Senator. You didn't like Senator Capella, did you?
No, I thought he was a dangerous candidate. I was concerned about his policies, his platform.
You thought he was so dangerous that you followed him across the country, isn't that right?
I wasn't following him. I was protesting him. I went to multiple campaign stops.
Ma'am, you're an Uber driver, isn't that right?
Yes, for the time being.
And you paid for a flight from Los Angeles, California, 3,000 miles to Boston, Massachusetts, isn't that right?
Yes, that's correct.
And then you rented a car.
I did.
You bought hotel rooms.
Yes,
You went from Boston to Cambridge, right?
that's correct.
From Cambridge to Rhode Island, right?
Yeah, that's where the next stop was.
And then you drove 300 miles in your rented car to Philadelphia. Isn't that right?
Yes,
And then you did that because you thought he was bad for this country.
yes, I was there to protest. Like I said, over and over, I was there to protest.
I know that's your story today. I want to talk about how dangerous you thought he was. Your Honor, retrieving Exhibit 12 from the jury. Ma'am, this is a tweet you made April 5th, right?
Yes,
It was made 2 months before Senator Capella died. Isn't that right?
yes,
Thomas R. Capella is a threat to every person in this country. Man, those aren't my words, are they?
they're mine. What I believe. I have concerns about what he was going to do to our national security. That has to do with every single one of us. They're my words.
As long as he is alive, none of us are safe. You believe that too?
Yes,
Did-
exactly. That's exactly what I believed. I was concerned about his politics. I was trying to use my rights, the rights that I fought for in Afghanistan, the things that I believe. This is what I thought.
That's a yes to my question. That's what you believe.
Yes.
Thank you, ma'am. No further questions at this time. Barring redirect, I'd ask that we publish those back to you. Or excluding Exhibit 14, obviously, since that was for a meeting.
Right. Are you going to do a redirect and you need these?
No redirect, Your Honor.
Okay, we can publish those except for 14 back to the jury. Excused. Anything else?
No, Your Honor, at this time, the defense rests on case and plea, and we're ready to move to the first argument.
Is the government ready to give a closing statement?
Yes, Your Honor. The Crown, Mr. Walker, members of the jury. Her anger put her on that rooftop. Her train did the rest. 6. 6. That's not the number of feet the rifle was from Senator Capella. It's the number of football fields it was. And that shot 6 football fields away. It didn't hit him in the left. It didn't hit him in the arm. It hit him dead center in the forehead. One shot, one kill. Members of the jury, throughout today's trial, you've heard Mr. Walker say over and over again that anyone could have done this. But you're reasonable people, so I'm confident you know that's not true. You know it would take special, particular training, world-class training. You know that a shot like that, it's hard to make. But the defense doesn't want to see it that way. They want you to believe that anyone could have done this. But we have shown you today But that's simply not true. But where did Mr. Walker get this story? Where did he get this idea that she had an alibi? This idea that she never touched a rifle? This idea that she doesn't know how to do this anymore? Well, just like she did to the FBI, just like she did to the military, just like she did to you all today. Well, Mr. Walker's client lied. This defendant lied, but she said on the stand to protect herself. Members of the jury, that's what she does. When she doesn't know we have extra evidence, she lies. When she doesn't know she's gonna get caught, she lies. It's what happened here, it's happened in the military, it happened in the FBI. Don't believe her lies. We've shown you today that she killed Senator Capel. And that she did so deliberately. And how do we know she did so deliberately? How do we know she wanted this so bad? Well, she chased them all across the country. She took a 3,000-mile flight, got a car, and then drove 500 miles. She told you she was protesting every day. Members of the jury, she protested all day in Providence. And then drove almost 300 miles to Philadelphia. She was obsessed with this man. And that obsession, it built, and it built, and it built for 2 months until she couldn't take it anymore. We know when it started, on April 5th. We know how it built by she traveled, and we know the culmination. You have that bullet in front of you. Can you see that? You know that the shot came from the synapse. We know today that it was a difficult shot. And we know she had the training to do it. You know she had the anger. You know not just anyone could hit this shot. And you know her DNA was there. Her DNA covered in gunshot residue. Members of the jury, in cases like this, you don't always need direct evidence. There's something called circumstantial evidence. That's when, even though you didn't see someone do something, all the evidence around that thing makes it clear it happened. I'll give you an example. Let's say I hear that on the weather that it's going to rain. And then the next morning I go outside and there's water in my backyard. Now, is it possible that someone got a hose, sprayed water in my backyard, and created puddles? Sure, it's possible. But it's not reasonable. It's not what makes sense. It's not what the circumstantial evidence points to. And in this case, the circumstantial evidence is overwhelming. In a moment, Mr. Walker's going to get up there. And he's going to try to convince you one more time that anyone could have hit this shot. But I'm asking you, think about that tweet. Think about her life. Think about the distance of that shot. Think about her training. And you'll realize that to anyone but her, that shot was clear. Thank you.
Closing from the defense, Your Honor.
You're right. We just walk with me to follow you.
No, you. Permission to retrieve copies of exhibits.
Yes.
May I proceed? Mr. Chandler. Members of the jury. More than I can count. Those are the words of the government's witness when I asked him, how many death claims did you find for Senator? Members of the jury, they know that when Senator Tom Capello walked up to that podium when he rehearsed that speech in his head, when he waved to the camera, to the audience at home, that every word he was going to say would mean something. To the hundreds of protesters gathered right in front of him, to the hundreds of thousands of people in the military who we sought to defund, to the millions that disagreed with them. And members of the jury, we agree that what happened on July 4th, 2022 was horrifying. A man lost his life. A family lost their loved ones. Millions of Americans lost their opportunity to have their voices heard. We understand that when a tragedy like this happens in our country, it's natural for us to look for a reason why. And we know that it would just be easier to point the finger at the first person somebody finds and say, you are responsible, but that's not how our justice system works. There are rules. There are standards that have to be met. There's a burden of proof that this government was required to meet by the time you walk out of this room. They had to prove to you today that Blake Crosby killed Senator Capello beyond a reasonable doubt. That means that by the time this trial is over, you don't believe that Blake Crosby is the only reasonable explanation for what happened that day, then Your Honor will tell you you can't find her guilty. They didn't meet that part. And we show that to you by walking through 3 parts of a murder trial and telling you that anyone could be the answer. So let's walk through it one by one. First, the means. Because members of the jury, that Secret Service agent agreed with me. In order to fire a bullet, you need a gun, and you haven't seen it. They told you they had pieces. That they found a trigger guard in a trash can on the streets of Philadelphia. But when we looked at the forensic evidence that they brought to you today, it said no fingerprints, no DNA on either that bullet or on that trigger guard. They have no forensic evidence stating that Blake Crosby ever touched either of those pieces during her trip to Philadelphia. But members of the jury, they have pieces. But pieces are not moving that burden of proof. So second, that motive. We showed you that anybody could have had the motive to kill Senator Capello. Because that Secret Service agent told you, yeah, he was a high profile person. He was a presidential candidate. We had to scour the internet over and over and over to make sure that he was safe. And they found death threats from millions of people who despised him. Mr. Chandler wants you to believe that they found one tweet from 3 months earlier, and that's how they know that Blake Crosby did it. Members of the jury, what about the ones that they didn't look at? Because if there's more death threats than they can count, there's more death threats than the government can look into. So great. Anybody could have had the opportunity. Because that rooftop that they keep telling you they found that cigarette on, we heard today that it was unlocked. That it had access to the street level. That there were 25 floors with guests that could access it whenever they wanted. Members of the jury, anyone could have taken those stairs and taken that shot. The answer is that it could be anyone. But it wasn't our job to prove that to you. The law, it doesn't say that we had to bring any witnesses or provide any evidence. It only says that the government has until just a few moments from now to prove their case. But I would understand if at this point of trial, you probably still had questions about what the government's case. because I actually have a few myself. Why? If the government says that this is solely about her training, did that secret agent tell you? We don't know who at that rally had the military training. They brought to you a military record from 2017, showing you that she won award after award in 4 years from almost a decade ago. Members of the jury, what about the winner from 2017, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22? Where are they, members of the jury? They want you to be the only person in the military who's capable of using a sniper rifle? Members of the jury, why? If this case is solely about her anger, that Secret Service agent tell you that that tweet that they found was from 3 months earlier. Why? If the government wants you to believe that she's the only person capable of committing this crime, despite having no money, following you around the country. Do we also see now that Senator Capello was going to Los Angeles? Members of the jury, she could have stayed home. Been in the city that she knew. The government brought you no evidence that she'd been to that hotel before, that she knew how far the distance was between that rooftop and that stage. As long as she knows, she was there to protest, to give her opinion, to speak when she could. So now it's time for the government to answer, because all we have right now, members of the jury, is that anyone could be the answer. So that's why we're going to ask that you find Blake Crosby not guilty. Thank you.
Mr. Walker asked, what about the winner? What about the record holder? Oh, wait, she's sitting right there. Members of the jury, she lied to your face. She lied about being at the spot of the bullet shot. Anyone. 600 yards, dead center, 1 shot, 1 kill, not in the leg, not in the arm. It was your reason. We know not anyone could do this. We know her alibi doesn't hold up because she lied. We know she has the expertise to hit that shot, a 1 in a million shot. And we know she hates this guy so much she chased him across the country. Use your reason. And you'll come to the only verdict consistent with the facts. A verdict of guilt. Thank you.
Thank you, counsel. I messaged